This biome here we're looking at are tropical rainforests, which can be found in the tropical climate zones, located just above and below the equator, which is right at 0 degrees latitude. So we have a lot of tropical rainforests in Central America, South America, parts of Africa, and also parts of Asia as well. So it can get pretty warm and muggy in this environment, in this biome, with not really much variation. So it can get as low as 68, which is not very low, up until like 93, maybe a little higher than that. But from month to month throughout the year, there really is not much variation in that temperature. It remains pretty warm all year long. Even their winter months can be like 80s and 90-degree temperatures. And like their name says, they are a rainforest. They have really high levels of precipitation from 50 to 260 inches. So here's a climatograph for a tropical rainforest. We can tell that it's a tropical rainforest and not a temperate rainforest by mainly looking at the temperatures. So in the tropical environment, there really is not going to be much variation from month to month throughout the year. Versus a temperate rainforest, it can get a lot cooler than in a tropical rainforest. And here you can see the really high levels of precipitation from month to month, with lots of rain happening during the earlier months, which is actually during their summertime in the southern hemisphere. So there's different kinds of plants or adaptations that plants have for living in this biome. So we also have epiphytes living in this biome as well. Remember, those are plants growing attached to another plant species. They're not parasitic, but they do depend on being attached to them so they can get better access to light for photosynthesis. Plants here actually have thin bark. Some of the other biomes, if you have not watched those videos yet, have pretty thick bark in order to help conserve and retain water. But in tropical rainforests, they don't need to worry about losing water. They have tons of rain happening year long, so they have pretty thin bark. They don't need to use a lot of energy to make their bark thick if they don't need to worry about water loss. And they have huge leaves. Why do you think leaves are this big? Not all of them, but some. Perfect. For photosynthesis, trying to capture as much sunlight as possible, especially if some of these plants are located below the canopy in the rainforest. A lot of light can get blocked out by trees above. So having really big leaves or allows them to capture as much sunlight as possible. Which kind of interesting in this environment, they actually have really fast rates of decomposition, of things breaking down. Why do you think that is? Perfect. Those warmer temperatures and increased moisture makes things decompose. It makes things break down faster. So even though they have really fast rates of decomposition, their soils, though, are actually really thin and actually nutrient poor. Why? It's because of all of the rainfall. So looking at here, this very thin band here, that's the actual topsoil where plants are growing into. So they don't really have a really thick layer of soil. There's so much rainfall that it washes away a lot of that soil, hence washing away a lot of those nutrients. That's called erosion, which is soil being lost. So here's different types of plants that are growing here. Here's the cocoa plant, which makes chocolate. We have bamboo and more rainforests in parts of Asia. Here we have moss that's growing on a tree. We have ferns, all kinds of orchids, which are beautiful flowers. Some of those plants actually have medicinal properties, which we'll talk more about later in the following unit, looking at biodiversity. And looking at the animals, very distinct animals with very unique adaptations as well. So they have jaguars, all kinds of frogs, gorillas, and other primate species, snakes. Some animals are going to be camouflaging, helping them to blend into that forest environment. Some, like the blue poison dart frog, have toxic skin. and really bright colors on their skin. That's to notify, hey, don't eat me, I'm toxic. And that's a nice little added protection for them too, for things don't want to eat them if they're going to get sick. We have animals that are more nocturnal at night, like this loris here that lives in Madagascar. Think of the movie Madagascar. They had lorises and lemurs featured in that movie. Because there's a lot of trees, it's a rainforest, a lot of animals have adaptations for living in the trees. Looking at this orangutan here that lives in Indonesia, they have really long arms and then really nice grasping fingers allow them to hold on to those trees. All right, guys, that takes care of tropical rainforests. Don't you wish you could go on vacation here? I do.